Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Gravity Well News. And today we're going to be covering the new hurricane affecting the United States, Hurricane Delta. But before we get on to that, let's just get a quick information about my Gravity Well map so you can get a brief history for any new viewers about how this map was created and what it was inspired by. Right, first thing we'll do is I'll bring you to a website that shows you where I first got this information from. You may have heard of him before. His name is Piri Reis. He is popular within the Ancient Aliens community. He is known as the cartographer, geographer, or Ottoman admiral navigator who made the world's oldest map that happens to show Africa and part of South America. Now, some people debate what the map is and if it really does show Africa and South America. And here's some examples of other maps that he's created with using the same style of map making. Next, I will show you the great circles. What a great circle is when you take a sphere and you divide it directly in half. That's what you get as a great circle, or also known as an orthodome. Now, in the old days, they used to use these great circles for navigation systems. The main reason is because it was the shortest distance between 2 points. And here's some of the formulas that they used to calculate them. I had heard that Piri Reis had collected these great circle maps from other sources and compiled it all into one large map. And then I found out that that's because all navigators in the old days, or most of them, used to use Portalon charts, and they used these great circle navigation map systems to develop these type of lines. So eventually you end up with a map with like a whole bunch of these orbs with straight lines dividing the Earth in half. Right, the term Portalon chart was coined in the 1890s because it was assumed they were related to Portolini, but some other people said that it was related to the word ports. By its origin, 19th century historians distinguished two main facilities of Portalon charts. So here we have some of them used by the Portuguese, by the Arabs, and the theories of origin. The origin of Portalon charts are obscure, having no predecessors despite their accuracy compared to other maps of the period. One study concluded that Portalons originated from earlier charts drawn in what is now called the Mechaton projection. Now, there is some controversy over the origins of the Mercurator. German polymath Erhard Etzlod engraved miniature compass maps of Europe and parts of Africa that span latitudes to allow adjustment of his portable size sundials. Joseph Needham, a historian of China, wrote that the Chinese developed the Mercurator projections hundreds of years before Mercurator did, using it in a star charts during the Song dynasty. However, this was simple and a common case of misidentification. Alright, it states here that Portalons are mosaics of smaller charts, each with their own scale and orientation, suggest the cartographic capabilities of whichever civilization produced these charts was more advanced than is currently acknowledged. So some people attribute these maps or gravity well maps to aliens passing the technology on to humans, but I'm not so sure that's the case. Right here I have some of the information about the man who put this together. His real name was Ahmed Mahuddin Piri, sorry for butchering, better known as Piri Reis. They were saying that was actually just his title. And he was an Ottoman admiral, navigator, geographer, and cartographer. He's also best known for the Book of Navigation, a book that I'm actually in the process of trying to purchase right now. And it's not a cheap book. You're looking at $400 Canadian. Alright, for many years little was known about Perry Reese, but the term Perry Reese actually means Captain Peary. And Reese is not part of his proper name. Today's based on the Ottoman archives. It is not known his full name was, that was his full name. Or that he was born either Gallipoli or another European part of the Ottoman Empire in present-day Turkish Thrace. His father's birthplace was central Anatolia. So from what I was reading in here, Perry Reese was a very unusual man in that he spent most of his life at sea, and I think he was raised by his uncle. And it says here also that Perry Reese lived to be a rather old age for the time. He lived to 82 or 88, and that was extremely rare in those days. The average lifespan was in their 30s to 40s. So for his age, he was almost considered superhuman. And as far as his death goes, let's check here. They say that he would have actually lived for a lot longer, but he was actually still on ships and in fights. And how he died is that he was beheaded. So he did not die of old age in his 80s at a time when most people lived to be 30. It says here that Perry Reese map is centered on the Sahara at the latitude of the Tropic of Cancer. I noticed the tropic lines on my map are also very exclusive or important. It says here he was executed in 1553 in Cairo, having been found guilty of raising the siege of Hormuz Island and banding the fleet, even though his reason was the lack of maintenance of his ships. So what we have here is an example of one of Perry Reese's Great Circle or Portalon chart maps put onto Google Earth. And here we have an example of his Perry Reese map, and you can see that it shows Africa and it also shows South America. And that was very rare for maps in his age, almost unheard of. The next slide is how I tried to compare his maps to mine, and I realized that they did match in a lot of locations, but not completely accurately, due to him using a whole bunch of other source maps and putting them together into one, I believe. Here's one of the tools that you can use to track where the tropic lines that I mentioned before. Remember how I said they were important and he used them? Well, these tools can decipher them. And you'll notice that they're actually very similar to the Freemason symbology. And those are a picture I took at the ROM Museum in Toronto. If you want to take a look at them, they have them in a display case. And it says that they were invented by the concept of Sir Isaac Newton. The Hadley quadrant was soon adopted by most British navigators. Now next I have a little diagram showing that I believe these Portalon charts are gravity well points. Each one of those orbs represents something that we normally see on other planets as well. You can see the cyclones of Jupiter's pole, they spin around it. Hurricanes spin around the Gulf of Mexico. Moon craters also match the same patterns. The Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, and earthquakes. And I brought up an example of Einstein's gravity well, just to show another example that these gravity wells are theorized to exist. I'm not sure if Einstein believed that one gravity well per planet existed, like in this map here, or that multiple ones did. And here we have some satellite imagery showing that clouds can often take the shape of the gravity wells as well. So people believe that cloud patterns are sometimes affected by gravity enough to change the shape. And I'll get more into that as we go. Here we have an image that shows a place that some people believed was Atlantis, or other people think it was Hyperborea. And I happened to find this location on the Earth using Perry Reese's gravity well maps. So I'll get to that as well as we go. Alright, so the next thing I did is I took that chart of either Atlantis or Hyperborea or whatever you'd like to call it, and I outlined it just on Google Earth so you could take a look at where I have it mapped on the map. You can see this part was actually the tip of Africa, and I don't know if the continent used to be, or the globe used to be smaller, but back then you can see where Australia or Antarctica looked like it had another landmass that connected it to near to Africa, or actually it looked like it joined at one point. And then you'll see here on the side there's a little bit of like a divot there. If I make it less opaque or more, you can see that there's the spot there. So there's quite a few of the spots that happen to map up exactly. And I'm doing the best I can to map it onto a round globe with a flat image. You can sort of see what I'm going at here, like there's there, here's that line there. So you can start to see where Hyperborea was there. Now if you'd like to see information about why I believe it was there, I'll put it on my gravity well map and show you how I stumbled across the location. So here we have it where I made my gravity well map. I happened to notice that there was a good spot there that was likely the location of something big, so I drew the circles around it. So I'll remove the map of Hyperborea, and then I'll show you what I stumbled across. Is when you happen to zoom in on this circular island chain, I happen to find out, well, it's not going to show it while I'm doing that, so I'll just remove this. Holy fuck, it still didn't remove it. Oh yeah, it did. Nope, not showing it. So if you zoom in onto the map, you can see a name comes up, and it's called the Schwabenland Seamount. And can you guess who named it that? It was the Nazi expedition. The Nazi expedition was witnessed by whalers on the Beauvais Islands. So they said that they were on their way to the Antarctic, but they happened to name this circular, recently submerged island chain after their ship called the Schwabenland, which has some Aryan mythology or history associated to it, similar to the Hyperborean Atlantis legends. So that's why I believe that that's the location of either Hyperborea or Atlantis, or if they're both the same. Alright, so that's a quick breakdown of how the Perry-Reese map, or gravity well map, was made by me. And then you can see that a lot of these lines, so the map has these, the equator and the prime meridian, as your basic lines that you find on every other map. And the ones at the North Pole too. These ones are also great circle maps. They just don't actually add them on the map, but they are on there with like very faint ones, not usually outlined, highlighted. But I highlighted them. And then we have the tropic lines, the Arctic lines. So all those are actual deciphered by that tool from Sir Isaac Newton that I showed you in the slides. Yeah, so once you map it all onto the globe, you find that these circle gravity well points often push the land away. Either in the boot of Zealandia or in the North Pole. Check out the formations in the North Pole and how it was changed by gravity. What I'm doing is putting on a map of what the original North Pole used to look like before the Great Cataclysm. And you can see that the landmass was very cubical around the top because of the gravity well formation. And then after the Great Disaster, this whole landmass shifted. And the reason for that is the North Pole is actually not stable. We assume that our North Pole is stable because we've only been researching it for a few hundred years. But it turns out that the North Pole shifts, goes down to here, and it makes this the North Pole during the Ice Age. Then after the Ice Age is over, it shifts back and goes back up to the regular North Pole. Same thing with the South Pole. It turns out that Antarctica and Australia, before the Great Disaster, used to be one giant South Pole. But since it's split in half, now the South Pole has been shifting back and forth. So for during the next Ice Age, Australia is going to be frozen. Or during previous Ice Ages as well. And just so happens that this year, the sun has been reaching its lowest point ever that it hasn't seen since the Ice Age. And Australia is breaking records for the coldest records ever recorded. And guess where else is recording the coldest? All along Canada's east coast this year in North America, we smashed all the cold records. So if the North Pole is really moving back to here, then these places will continue to get colder and colder. And you can imagine anything on the west coast that used to be near the regular North Pole is going to get warmer. So that's why the west coast is receiving hotter and hotter temperatures. But the media today only likes to focus on the hot because they're selling taxes. But if they weren't selling taxes, then they would tell us that not only is the west coast getting hotter, but the east coast is getting colder. So yeah, that's why I believe that the entire North Pole got smashed up. Right, the next thing we're going to cover is I'm going to add the weather to the storms so that we can see what Hurricane Delta is looking like. So there you can see, right now it's centered around the gravity well. We have some gravity well formations on this one. The ones on the North Pole, we can see a little bit of formation there. And you can see the cloud formations often follow the lines. Looks like we have another storm heading towards the South China Sea. Oh, and if people want an example of how cities align on these maps, I believe in ancient times, because of the Portolan maps, people actually built their cities on the locations. Let's see here. You can see Pyongyang, North Korea, is on the map. We also have Hong Kong. And then we also have Beijing. So there's a number of major cities that you'll find that are located directly on the gravity well lines or Portolan charts or Great Circle maps, whatever you'd like to call them. I like to call them gravity well points. Next, we're going to be checking out more of the cloud formations to give you an idea of not only do gravity wells really affect the clouds, but check this out. I notice a particular line here. About 90% of the times when I turn a gravity well map on with the weather, you will find this line here. And I couldn't figure out what this line was until I figured out or finished the map's red layer. Then I realized that it was one of the lines for the red lines. That's the one that map is, or it is overlaying. And now the red map is actually very difficult to finish, so I haven't completed it completely. But I'll zoom out and give you guys an idea of the different colors. Yeah, as you can see, that gravity well point helped to shape Africa like it did. It helped to shape this area. It helped to shape India and South Asia. And it also helped to formate Australia. Now people look at South America and say, hey, it doesn't look like it shaped it very much. And that's true until you turn on the blue layer. Then you can see the blue layer of the map. It helped illustrate why South America is the shape that it is today. Alright, so let's get back to the weather. Yeah, so here's some of the storms. And you'll notice once we have hurricanes that a lot of the major gravity well points in the South Pole will start getting very strong activity as well. So we got some formation around those. Oh yeah, and the North Pole. You can see this point here on the North Pole. This landmass or ridge of sea craters happens to map this shape of that. Then also storms will as well. So we'll bring the storms back. Yeah, storms often get pulled into this gravity well. It's a very strong one. Alright everyone, so that's just a quick summary of what the clouds and everything look like. And I'll give you a quick outline too, just to give you some more information of how accurate this map is I will put on the plate lines. Right, so these plate lines, you can see that they're also affected by the gravity well patterns. Some of the most major points will actually bend and follow right for it. Let me give you an example. You might think this fork here looks like it's off, but when I add in the other colors to the map, You can see here that the gravity well point is almost landing on it identically, and it tends to split in the same formation. Yeah, so you can see how the line is being affected by the gravity well points. A lot of cases it'll turn and go right with the lines. So that's just a little example of how a lot of the plate lines actually do line up. Here's one of my favorite ones. It almost bends right with it, right? So that's when you'll start to see that gravity is not only affecting the storms, but it's actually drastically affecting the plate lines. Alright, so next thing I'll do for the gravity well map is I'll show you how the South Pole split with these gravity well lines. You can see here that it divided Australia and Antarctica completely in half that way. And the other part of the continent that's missing happens to be Zealandia. So I'll show you guys, if you haven't seen Zealandia before, it's what the continent used to look like before it happened to the water levels rose and submerged it. So there you have Zealandia there, and you can see where the boot pattern is. Just like Italy, the gravity well is in the heel of the boot, the land shaped around. So now you can see how Australia, Antarctica, and Zealandia used to all merge together into one giant continent, our super South Pole. And that's what our super South Pole used to look like before it split in half. Right, the next evidence I'll show you guys that this gravity well map is pretty interesting and can show you a lot of cool things about our Earth, is I'll bring up the earthquakes and I'll turn off the plate lines. Now a lot of these are official files directly from the government resources, so other than the gravity well map, pretty much everything else on here is just data straight from the government. Alright, so let's look at some of the earthquake patterns. You can see that the Idaho earthquakes are on the lines. The ones in Utah. California has so many that they're evenly distributed. And for people that are interested in New Madrid Quake and where it will occur, there's 3 points. I'll bring up the blue lines because it best illustrates it. Right here, Oklahoma. Right here by the border of South Carolina or North Carolina and Tennessee, and the one in the center in Arkansas. The government used to have an archive where you could look at every earthquake that's ever recorded, and it made huge patterns of dots around here, and around here. But since the government has removed those files, so we'll just have to go with what I remember and what ones have occurred recently. So the New Madrid Quake, I believe, will be epicentered right around here when it occurs. Hopefully not in our lifetime. The next New Madrid Quake. Right, some other earthquake locations that people might like to see is I'll show how it's affected Europe in the past. Now what I'd like to do is center the map with each gravity well point and then zoom in. So here you can see more of the places that have been affected by the gravity wells and different cities that are located on the maps, different earthquake patterns. Now here it doesn't really show many great earthquakes, it's either just the recent ones, but I'll put on some historical ones for a better impression. Right, now I have all the earthquakes, apparently, well I know it's not all of them, but all of them that have been recorded so far in the file by the government. And then now you can see the historical quakes and how they've interacted with the map. The Romanian point, where the two gravity well centers have had a lot of big earthquakes, 7.3, 7.5. It's because of the X marks the spot there. Same thing with here in Turkey. Gravity well point there is causing a lot of major earthquakes. I think Sofia in Bulgaria has been lucky. Despite having a gravity well point in the center, they haven't had a major one yet. Which I looked into Bulgaria's earthquake history and I believe they will one day. Hopefully not in our lifetimes. Screw those people in the future. Anyways, yeah, so here's some more historical quakes. You can see it on the map. We'll bring up the Chinese ones, or Asia. Now, in ancient times, they used to believe that China was the center of the earth. And when you look at the map this way, it almost does. Like there would be the center there, there's Beijing. So it actually was close to being the center. Well, I guess you could call it the center because that still would be China. Yeah, you'll notice that there's a little bit of like a swirl pattern that forms here with the historical quakes. Let's check out some more historical quakes here. Yeah, if you zoom way out, it really just puts the big ones on. And then there you can tell that a lot of them are landing right on the gravity well lines. Yeah, let's check out this one here. 7.5 in Islamabad. This center gravity well point has had a lot of interaction there. And you can see too the way the mountain chains work for Tibet and China. They also follow the gravity well point map. It's basically like a giant X. I never realized that the mountain formations form the X with the bottom of the continents, right? Alright, so let's check out the historical quakes in the States. I believe that the ones in the States don't have as many of them mapped because obviously we hadn't inhabited, Europeans hadn't inhabited the continent until much later. Or maybe, yeah, from 1900s and on. So yeah, I guess it would be there still. Maybe the government just deleted a lot of the earthquakes off the records. I'm not sure why they did. I was thinking the only thing I can think of is they didn't want people to panic for the new Madrid Quake. So they removed the map data so you couldn't see that that's the exact location where it will occur within a few miles. Yeah, we'll get into the South America ones, but they're a little bit difficult to check because really there's so many earthquakes along this area that it's going to be impossible for it not to show up, right? Yeah, and you notice that the ring of fire happens to be a big circle within the gravity well map's yellow layer. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but to be honest, I've only been working on this for about 2 years, so I have a lot to learn about it. Yeah, those earthquakes on the gravity well line too. So if anyone's watching the show and they want information about earthquakes or yeah, the different storms, seeing them mapped. And there's actually something I forgot to mention too, is ancient sites are also on these gravity well points. So I believe the ancients were very much into it also. Right, so I hope everyone liked my presentation on gravity wells. The only thing I have left to bring up is a little bit of information from NOAA. Let's bring that up next. Right, here we have the file from NOAA, and they're showing a storm Norbert, which is probably going to start orbiting around the gravity well in the Gulf of Mexico, if I had to anticipate its pattern. And let's go on to the Atlantic. Here we can see Hurricane Delta, and I'll give you guys what it currently is, the maximum sustained winds of 90 miles per hour. Yeah, so that's what I have from NOAA. Right, so I hope everyone's going to stay safe and listen to the authorities when it comes to these hurricanes. I know the authorities have been hard to trust lately, but I think when it comes to hurricanes, they're still on the ball. Right, so the next thing I'll bring up is some ways that you can help my research and my show keep going. And if you'd like to skip ahead at this point, I don't blame you. It's fine. If you can't support it, I don't blame you. This one here is the free Bitcoin casino. I use it to raise money for my show and keeping my podcast going. And how it works is every day you can play it, and every hour you get these free spins. You just click up here, click free spin, and this collects how much Satoshi you have. Once you have enough Satoshi to equal 1, then that'll be 1 Bitcoin, because Satoshi is like the pennies of Bitcoin, right? Right, so let's give it a roll. I'm at 32,674 Satoshi, which isn't a lot. It's about $3 US. It's always changing with the value of Bitcoin. Boom! So there we go, 32,693. And other things you can do on this site up here is you click, and once you have 30,000 Satoshi, you start collecting 4% interest. They also have multiply game that's like a casino game, so you can bet, similar to like a roulette style thing. And they also have betting on sports and things like oil, stock markets, all sorts of interesting stuff. So if you guys want to do any betting, I encourage you, don't waste too much of your own real money, just do those free spins every hour. And every time you do those free spins every hour, it helps out my show big time. You can see I get reward points for every spin you guys do. And so far, I already have a team of 39 people helping the show out. So I really appreciate anyone else can help join. I'll have the affiliate link linked below, and I'll also put a betting strategy video on how I figured out a few different ways in order to make money quick at this Bitcoin casino. And I encourage everyone, only play with the money you can afford to lose, and that's why I just play with the free spins. And then the other ways you can help my show out is with Patreon. Society 6, I sell some merchandise. Finishing Quick is my specialty shirts. Also comes in bed sheets. Very popular with the ladies. And we also have Swagbucks. It's a discount service where you can get deals online. It gives you percentage off on all your purchases, and it helps you find the gift codes. And then GameKit is a place you can get paid to play video games. Hideout TV, they'll pay you to watch videos like YouTube does, except a portion goes to the creators and the watchers of the videos. Bitcoin is the lottery I just showed you, and the virtual mate sex machine. It's for adults and men only, but ladies that need a sex machine, they know who to call. Just kidding. Alright, so thanks everyone for watching the show. I really appreciate it, and if you can help share and like and subscribe, that means the world to me. Take care everyone, make sure to stay safe. Like I said, if you got more topics you want me to cover on the Gravity Well News, say the ancients, earthquakes, storms, you name it. Yeah, I'm going to start to get more into how it affects or interacts with the electric universe theory. I know some people are really big into that too. So I'm pointing at you guys. Alright, take care everyone, and have a good day. Stay safe. Bye for now. Here's three things. One's a subscribe, one's a Bitcoin, and another is the best video for you, or in the Gravity Well playlist. Take care. Bye for now. See you next time.